The warm glow of the church enveloped the congregation, casting a golden hue over the wooden pews where families and friends sat closely together, their heads bowed in reverence. The air was thick with a sense of anticipation, the kind that comes just before a revelation, as the pastor stood tall at the pulpit, an open Bible resting before him. His presence commanded attention, not through force, but through the gentle authority of a shepherd guiding his flock. He began to speak, his voice a soothing balm that filled the sacred space. When Jesus began his ministry, he did something extraordinary. He chose 12 ordinary men to be his disciples. But why 12? What was the purpose behind this divine selection? The question hung in the air, inviting contemplation. The congregation leaned in, their hearts open, eager to hear the unfolding of a story that was both ancient and profoundly relevant. As he continued, the pastor painted a vivid picture of that pivotal evening long ago. "Imagine the scene," he urged. Jesus, after spending an entire night in prayer, stood on a mountainside bathed in the glow of the moonlight. It was there that he called to these men by name: Peter, James, John, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot. Each name echoed in the hearts of the listeners, a reminder of the unique journeys these men would embark upon. He spoke of their backgrounds, how they came from different walks of life: fishermen casting nets into the sea, a tax collector despised by his own people, and a revolutionary with fervent ideals. These were not the elite, the pastor emphasized, not the wise or the powerful, but ordinary men, just like you and me. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Heads nodded in agreement, eyes glimmering with understanding. The pastor's words resonated, revealing a profound truth, that Jesus saw potential where others saw flaws. The number 12, he continued, symbolizes the 12 tribes of Israel, encapsulating God's plan to restore his people. Each disciple represented a thread in the grand tapestry of God's design. The pastor's voice grew richer, infused with inspiration. More importantly, Jesus selected these men to illustrate that God calls ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. He did not choose the most educated or the wealthiest. He chose those who were ready to trust him, even amidst their weaknesses. In that moment, the congregation was drawn into reflection. Some bowed their heads deeper, seeking connection through prayer, while others exchanged glances filled with newfound hope. The pastor's message had ignited a spark within them, illuminating the fact that their own imperfections did not disqualify them from being instruments of God's purpose. They were reminded that they, too, could be called, just as the 12 were. With a gentle pause, the pastor allowed the weight of his words to settle. The organ played softly in the background, filling the silence with a melody that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the congregation. It was a moment of unity, a collective breath taken in the presence of something larger than themselves. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating a sanctuary of warmth and safety. As the pastor prepared to conclude, he posed a question that resonated deeply within the hearts of those present. So today, are you willing to answer his call? Will you allow Jesus to shape you into his disciple, just as he did with the 12? The question lingered in the air, a challenge wrapped in grace. The congregation sat in contemplative silence, each person wrestling with their own answer, their own willingness to step into the unknown. One by one, they began to respond, not with words, but with the quiet determination reflected in their faces. A mother holding her child tighter, a young man with dreams in his eyes, an elderly couple clasping hands in solidarity, all felt the pull of something greater than themselves. They understood that the call to discipleship was not reserved for the perfect, but for those willing to take a step forward, to embrace the journey of faith. The pastor smiled gently, sensing the shift in the room. He continued, "Discipleship is not just about following. It's about transformation. It's about allowing God to work through our lives, to mold us into vessels of his love and grace." His voice rose with passion, filling the church with a sense of purpose. Jesus is calling each of us today, inviting us to be part of his story, to play a role in the unfolding of his kingdom here on earth. As the service drew to a close, the pastor extended an invitation. If you feel called to take that step, I invite you to come forward. The congregation stirred, some rising from their pews, moving toward the front with a sense of resolve. The atmosphere was charged with possibility, every person stepping forward representing a decision to embrace their identity as a disciple of Christ. In that warmly lit church, a moment of transformation unfolded. The pastor prayed over those who came forward, his words a blessing that wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. May you find strength in your weaknesses, courage in your doubts, and love in your journey. For just as Jesus called the 12, he calls you today. As the final notes of the organ filled the air, the congregation left the church, hearts ignited with purpose, ready to carry the message of hope and transformation into their daily lives. They understood that being a disciple was not confined to the walls of the church, but was a journey that began the moment they stepped outside, a journey of faith that would weave through their ordinary lives, making the extraordinary possible.